Okay, sounds perfect. All right, well, welcome everybody. It is June 5th and it is the first Monday of June. And I just am always so excited for this first Monday because we get to really infuse our hearts and our minds with the mindset behind what just makes our businesses thrive. And I just am so excited to invite Dr. Kyyzua Olsen to this call because she and I are connected in so many ways now. And I love it when people just become like a part of this beautiful weaving into my life. And Dr. Kyyzua is that for sure. Not only is she my primary care physician, she just comes to us with so many credentials. She has a bachelor's of science in physiological science, an MS in oriental medicine, a doctorate of naturopathic medicine. So she's just an amazing healer and doctor, but she's also a monster entrepreneur. And that's how Dr. Kyyzua and I know each other, is through a business networking group. She is the owner of Rise Shine Enterprise Daily Planner. She's just a master planner and could do a whole other training on that alone. She's the owner of Remedy Wellness Center in Bend, Oregon, where she operates an in-person and online practice specializing in gut health. She has developed online courses in Everyday Health, which is a series to support health. She's developing a new family wellness program called Family Remedy, and I am lucky enough to be her wellness coordinator. So she is also an affiliate with the Juice Plus company and is starting to really, just recommend Juice Plus to many of her patients. So Dr. Kyyzua takes an incredibly holistic approach to health, which includes deep breathing, mindset, sleep, stress, environment, nutrition, all those things that we know so well in our Juice Plus community. But this tonight is not a health talk necessarily. Because Dr. Kyyzua is such an incredibly productive entrepreneur, I knew that she would be the perfect person to really talk about this book that she and I really love. And we've done some book groups in our leadership team within Juice Plus, and that is the book called Atomic Habits by, is it James Clear? I forgot to have my book in front of me. So yeah, you've got it. Fantastic, Kyyzua. Thank you so much. So do you want to say anything before we just jump into our question and answers? Anything I missed with your introduction?
You hit all the points. I mean, you definitely made me blush. I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I first learned about Kyyzua's passion for Atomic Habits in her relationship with coaching people on their wellness journeys. And, as a group of entrepreneurial business people in the wellness industry on this call, Kyyzua, can you tell people why you've become such a fan of this book and how, some of the basic principles that you just feel like dovetail beautifully?
Yeah, so I think with Atomic Habits, it's definitely one of those books that I think is so important to read more than once. My goal is actually to read it annually because I think it's that impactful. It's a great reminder about how to build habits and how to make them work for you and also for your clients. And so really, I think the biggest takeaway that I got from this book is really the fact that I no longer believe that inaction is neutral, meaning if you're not taking action, you're basically, because life continues to move forward, you are inherently left behind, so to speak, or behind the curve or whatever you're trying to accomplish. So I think it's so incredibly important to use these habits, beneficial habits, whether again, they're for your health or for coaching other people on how to improve that, which I know is so inherent within Juice Plus. And I know you guys just started a Shred 10, right? So it's incorporating those values as well into how do you make it easy, which is actually one of the 4 pieces to making good habits. to making them actually stick. And we'll get into all of that. But ultimately, it comes, I think that the first chapter is so incredibly impactful because it talks about incremental gains. And it even talks about the particular story of some bike racers essentially, and how they went from being the worst team to being the one who then won all of these championships. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is how do we continually get 1% better in all of these different aspects of our life.
Wow. And that keeps it in that place of feeling like it's doable, right? Instead of feeling like we have to make a bunch of change all at once. And I agree. I feel that this book really, it felt very empowering because of what you just talked about. So as you and I were preparing for this interview, Krisha, I realized that some of the points that you feel are the most powerful actually follow the chapters of this book. So the first law, as I was going back and reading after we chatted, it was like, oh, Krisha was just essentially going through all of the basic laws. And the first law is to make it obvious. So can you talk about some examples and how just making it obvious supports positive habit change?
Yeah, and I'd also say, that it's important to know the positive of it, because then you can also use it to reverse engineer, so to speak, these other negative habits that we're trying to push out, so to speak, right? So, and I always, even when I talk with my patients or even with coaching, I like to focus more so on adding more things in, and so adding in more good habits. And the biggest one, right, is to make it really obvious. So like planning for me, of course, right, being the one who created a paper planner, of course, planning is really essential for me to stay on focus on task, and to continue to improve myself on a regular basis, both in my business, personally, and professionally, in so many different avenues. And so with that, I like to keep my planner out in a really obvious place. I don't keep it in my bag where I can't see it. Rather, it's on the kitchen table. And oftentimes it's even better if it's open to the week, because then it's incredibly obvious and in a vicinity that I will see on a regular basis, so that then it becomes going on to the next other habit. It makes it really easy to actually pick up the pen and then to actually do some of that planning. So then again, those things are top of mind.
I love that. And something that really works for me too, along those lines, is if I visit my planner before I go to bed the night before and put my planner in an obvious place, it's almost like my mindset is in a positive place for positive change as I go to sleep. And it's just seamless when I wake up in the morning. So I love that that's a part of your routine as well. So can you talk a little bit, this was also in chapter 1, can you talk about habit stacking? Because
Absolutely.
I know you and I both love this concept of habit stacking, and it's so brilliant.
Yeah, so habit stacking is one of my favorite tricks and tips that I learned from this book, actually, because it's so powerful for, again, so many different avenues of your life. And it's really the concept that we already have these habits in place, right? That we do inherently. And so if you already have a habit that is already set in stone, so to speak, right, that you already do regularly, well, then how about utilizing that as a tool by simply stacking onto the new habit that you want to incorporate into your life? Or so, for example, part of my evening routine is I have really long hair, and I can't sleep with it just straight to I have to braid it. And so part of my routine then is to braid my hair. So after I'm done braiding my hair, I've stacked my habit of looking into my planner right after. And after I'm done with my planner, then it's these other habits just string into it. So essentially it's one long chain of habits that started with one thing that always has to happen anyways.
I love that. Yeah. And I love that yours is tied to something just so elemental like braiding hair. So I just want the rest of this group to know it does not have to be, these can be and should be daily habits, just that are already happening for you? I set things often near my toothbrush,
Mhm.
you know, or yeah, or on my nightstand because I'm going to sleep anyway. So,
Exactly.
and yeah, so the second law, now this one is a little bit tricky for me, making habits attractive. And often I think we're trying to gain new habits that are healthy, that are more productive for our lives and for our businesses, but we avoid them. We avoid them because they're not comfortable for us. So can you talk about what the second law about making habits attractive means? Because I have a hard time with that one.
Yeah, so for me, part of it, like I've even tricked myself into doing so as a physician, I have to have charts, right? And I have to make sure that they're all complete in a timely fashion. And so one of the things that I do to make it attractive is that when I finish my charts, I get a reward, right? And I already know that I'm going to get that reward, which is actually one of the incentives for a lot of our habits is that we get some benefit out of it. And so it's for me, it's reminding myself or even have like a sticky note that when this happens, I'm going to, either feel good or I'm not going to have work looming over me. It's like really focusing on what are the benefits and trying to keep that top of mind as much as possible.
I love that. And I know one thing in this community, Krisha, is, most of us come into this community not being salespeople, right? We've come from either a healthcare background or educational backgrounds or stay-at-home moms, whoever we are. Follow-up calls are often one of those things that I hear people just having a really hard time with, and there's a lot of avoidance around it. So I would say I am in the same boat where I try to kind of give myself an incentive. I don't get to do this fun thing until I make that follow-up call that I've been avoiding for a week or whatever.
Yeah,
So
and that also goes into another book, which is Eat That Frog, right? Which basically is trying to do the hardest task or the most important task really first thing in the morning or as soon as possible, because then it's done and then you're already on that momentum. I think the other, what was I going to say? Other thing with that is trying to also reframe. So like with follow-up calls, it's not about like, oh, I got to do this follow-up call. It's like, oh, I get to connect with this person and see how
mm,
they're feeling or how they've benefited or how I might be able to contribute to them a little bit more. And I think when when you do a little bit of a reframe or perspective shift, it also can really make it a lot easier and more attractive to then actually do the thing, which ultimately, again, going back to the first thing that I said, the most important thing is really to stay in action and to keep that momentum and do the thing.
I love that. And one of our leaders on this call framed these as love calls because really, and we are loving on people if we're following up to
Mhm.
help them get healthier, right? So I love that reframing. So the third law is make it easy. Can you give us some examples of like what creating new habits would look like if we just made it easy on ourselves?
And that's one of the things too, where, so a couple different aspects with that. One, like what I really love too about the habits is that they can be win-wins, right? So like the fact that I put my planner in a really obvious place also makes it easy, right? It makes it easy for me to plan because I don't have to pull it out, remember where it was. And so that makes it so much easier. And on top of that, I include all, like my pens are right there with it, right? They're like one little package. And the other aspect of that is, in particular, if you're doing like I recommend meditation a lot to my patients. And so what often I recommend with that, because doing 30 minutes of meditation or 10, 15 minutes can be overwhelming. So what I love about Atomic Habits is that James Clear recommends just starting with the 2-minute rule, which is just get started, just do it for a little bit, and then you can stop. You can even have a timer just going, right? You could do it at the same time every day, or you could have it as a habit stack, where you're doing something and then you're just doing your next new habit that you're trying to incorporate, but just for a short period of time, because then it doesn't seem overwhelming, like, oh, I have to do this and it's going to take so much. I think exercise is also one that happens a lot too, where we're like, oh, well, I want to do, and this totally happens to me too, where it's like, I want to do this exercise or this program, but it's 20, 30 minutes. Where am I going to fit 20, 30 minutes? But I could fit 2 minutes of jumping jacks in really easy, right? And I think in terms of business, it comes down to like if you're trying to get to a call or maybe just organize your day, it's like, well, just take 2 minutes to do that and see where you land. Because you might then, just by getting started, which is more often than not the most challenging place, right? Is you need to get into that momentum. And then once you're in that, just by physics, it's easier to stay in that. And so again, it's just a matter of get going and do the 2 minutes, because you might find that you actually enjoy doing it and time's gotten away from you, or you're in flow, and now 20-30 minutes later you're still doing it and it doesn't
Yeah,
feel
because you're having so much fun. Yeah,
right.
I
That's the ideal.
agree. Yeah. And I know, one of the sayings again in this business is, if you have an 15 minutes a day to dedicate to your business. Most of us scroll on our phones for that amount of time. We watch Netflix for way longer than that in a day. And, I think it really is a part of that. Just touch your business for 15 minutes a day. But once you're right, once you carve out the time and sit down and do it, often 15 minutes turns to an hour. So
Right.
so the last but not least law of this book is making it satisfying. So explain what making it satisfying feels like.
So, it's think and again, the great thing about the habits or the rules is that they really tie in really nicely together, because we're always everyone is motivated by something, and so ultimately that's what it really is about, is trying to figure out what is it going to how are you going to make it attractive, right? And what is that reward that's going to make it the most attractive to you? And then the most important thing, though, is actually getting the reward afterwards, because that's going to then feed into the continuation of the habits. And that's, again, what makes it a habit, is that you're attracted to keep doing it again and again and again, because you just keep those continual benefits. So like if you're trying to grow your social media, for example, keeping your phone in an easy place, or maybe even having a time that you're doing it, where then again, like maybe for the 2 minutes, it's just about, for me, often doing the post is a little bit more challenging. So I find it a lot easier to just share stories. And so I'll just do that. And then it's like, oh, then that kind of feeds into, all right, I've done the thing. I did my 2 minutes, right, to make it easy. And then the attractive piece after that is oftentimes someone will get, they'll respond to it. They'll get a connection from it. Or, right, simple is to then what I like, well, in that particular scenario, often it's like, all right, I did the thing, give myself some love. Now I can go on to enjoying the rest of my evening. And maybe that's, playtime with the pup, for example. I kind of switch it up where it's not always the same thing, but it's generally things that I really love doing. And that's that playtime, which is so important for us. And I find that most people aren't doing it enough.
Yeah, I agree. And I love how you tied all those principles together, Krisha, because I do feel like there is a positive feedback loop that makes, that makes, for example, I think social media is such a great example, because so many of us dread it and we put it off. And the minute we put something up about Shred 10 or about your new health program or whatever, and you get some positive feedback from it, that makes you want to do the thing more, right? So, another thing that I thought was so interesting in this chapter, the fourth law, is that he talked about accountability.
Mm.
And in this community, we always say, find a buddy, find the buddy that is going to hold you accountable, that will, that you can do those power hours with, or you can do events with, or somebody who will go, wait a minute, you said you were going to do this and you didn't, somebody that you trust enough to do that. So I think, because this is a relationship business, I think the more we can build accountability and healthy relationships into our business, it does make it more satisfying. So
I mean, that's my
yeah.
favorite thing. Accountability buddies. That's what I love calling it. Just fun to say.
Say it again.
Accountability buddies.
Oh, I
Right.
love that. I've never heard
So
that before.
find your accountability buddy.
Accountability buddy. I love
And I
it.
think that, it's so important to be in community and being with folks who also share the same goals, the same drive, right, to be in that community. That's actually why I've created Family Remedy, because I find that just inherently as human beings, we're still pack animals, right? We don't really think of ourselves that way. But what that really means is that we thrive most in community with the people who we think and we resonate with. And so that's where accountability buddies are so important, because they help to rise us all, right? So one of the quotes that comes often, actually, right, Kirsten, in our BNI group is, a rising tide raises all boats. And that's what a community does, is it helps to lift everyone.
Oh, I love that. At this point, you guys, we have, I mean, I just can't believe how fast 20 minutes has gone. Speaking of making it satisfying, I could just chat with you for hours about this stuff, Krisha, but I would love to open it up at this point to our guests to see if anybody has comments, questions, you know, if you've read the book, anything else that resonated with you. Sounds like we've got a pretty satisfying. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, Kirsten. Oh, this is
Yeah.
Carrie. I just really enjoyed this, and I've read the book, as you know, but it was really good to just go back and revisit just the different habits and the different things that he talked about in the book. So I really appreciate you, and it was great. It was a fantastic call.
Thank you so much. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Go
I
ahead.
would like to know, I have bought the book, but I haven't started reading it because I'm in the middle of another book. I want to know, is this the type of book that you're supposed to read front to back, or could you go to any of them that you're drawn to, any of the chapters?
I would say the latter, where you really could just pick it up and start reading whichever chapters. I will say, though, that I mostly read from front to cover to cover, just because that's my own kind of nature. But there's definitely chapters that I've read more frequently and kind of gone back to a little bit more. I'm definitely one that also likes to highlight and like take notes in my books, and so I go through that too.
Okay. Thank you.
And Randy, I tend to be the opposite. I tend to be one of those that just opens the book and goes, okay, I'm going to get the message I'm supposed to get. So I tend to be a little more random in my, you know, in my approach, but it's such an awesome book. And Dr. Krisha, I love also how you really encouraged people to make this an annual read, you know, really to revisit it over and over, because the information and you know, just the principles that this book really encourages are so key and so foundational. So
yeah, I mean, we all struggle with maintaining good habits, right? And so I think that it's a great reminder to come back to it and be like, all right, well, how can I streamline my life to make it easier to maintain the things that I know serve me at my highest? Right? Because so often we always say life got in the way. Well, how can we make it so that life doesn't, right? Where it's actually, again, you're kind of in that flow naturally. And I think that James Clear did a great job at outlining how you can make that as easy as possible. And so that's why I really like coming back to it. And just going back real quick for Randy about reading the book, 2 minutes. Just read 2 minutes, however far you get in 2 minutes, just stop and then move on to the other book that you're reading, right? It's like you can still incorporate the same things so that that the book is talking about as you're trying to read the book.
You know, I'm wondering if there's anybody on the call tonight that has a habit that they've been trying to start, like, and you can maybe say, yeah, I've been trying to incorporate such and such in my life. And maybe there's a way that you can chat about habit stacking that doctor can maybe suggest to you. Is there anybody here that's trying to start a habit that just has not been successful? Would like a little coaching? Just a thought.
I love it, Nikki. It's a great opportunity. Come on, somebody.
And we don't have to, but maybe it's follow-up, maybe it's customer care, maybe it's exercising, you know, maybe it's drinking more water. I'll tell you, one of the things that I did when I was trying to drink more water is that I actually found a friend who said she was not drinking enough water. And so we buddied up together. And the assignment was every time either one of us took a sip of water, we had to think of the other person. So it was really fun because I love her. And so I go, I'm going to have a sip of water. I'm going to think of Joanne. So it got me in the habit of drinking water by adding something, what you said, fun, or adding something, a reward or something to the end of it. Did anybody have a one that they would like to have help with?
I saw a comment that Johnny popped in here, and this blows me away, Johnny, because I feel like you and Beverly must be king and queen of follow-up, but you said that following up is a challenge. Do you want some coaching there? Or?
Yeah, following up, whenever you meet with a lot of people, whether it be your personal team or new people you're meeting, and you're still doing the other activities in life, until you can compartmentalize them and actually schedule them, oftentimes, follow-up actually falls by the wayside because you're on to the next event or the next three-way call or the next whatever it is, and you're following up with other people's people, but not necessarily your own people. So you have to kind of block that out and be intentional about it. And sometimes that's more difficult to do when your team starts growing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, actually, because you reminded me that one of the actually really important things that in the Atomic Habits book is actually the importance of systems. It's not actually about, like, it's really about making things as easy as possible. And so, like, following up, it's like having some sort of system in place so that it becomes really easy, where you don't have to remember when to follow up. You get like a tickle reminder, or I've used, what is that one called? I can't think of it off the top of my head now. But the little, there's so many different ones at this point. But I even have in my medical system follow-up reminders. And so I just put that in there immediately. So now as I finish the call, I already know that there's a follow-up in place so that I don't have to personally keep track of it. And so again, it's about having really good systems. And if you don't have good systems, working on improving that. So it takes a little bit of that pressure off of you and it makes it a little less overwhelming.
I love that. And there's an app that many of us use, and this doesn't take care of the initial follow-up, new people that are new in your funnel. But once you have team and customers, the project broadcast has been a complete game changer for me, because it's very automated. It gives that customer care that I was letting fall by the wayside, Johnny. I was real good at getting customers, and then I would forget about them until they canceled their next order, right? And Project Broadcast really has helped me press the easy button and then focus on the ones that do need more of my personal attention. So I love that systems, Krisha. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, so incredibly important, because it's really about making things easier for ourselves rather than harder. I used to also do teaching for the Princeton Review, and everywhere in that book was all about work smarter, not harder. And that's what systems allow you to do, is to work smarter so that you're not having to work harder and trying to remember all of the things, because and that's actually why I also love planning, because for me, a lot of the stuff is like this mental Rolodex. And so if I can have a place where I know that it's secure, that I don't have to remember it because I know exactly where it's going to be and it's reliable, I have more mental space, more mental capacity for other things that matter most.
Wow, I love it. So then back to the planner. So I did, it is getting close to 6 o'clock, everybody. And I know we like to honor everybody's time, but I will tell you that on Dr. Krisha's website, there is just a wealth of information. She and I have done health talks together. So and what are those called in the archives?
Wellness Coalition.
Wellness Coalition.
They're in the 30-minute webinar section.
Yeah, a lot of wellness information, but also a lot about her planner and her new programs. And Krisha, I'm just honored that you're a part of our community, honored that I get to be your wellness coach. And I just thank you so much for your time. And this was live streamed into Facebook, and we will also have a recording available. So I will sign off with that, unless you have anything else, Nikki.
No, the only thing I just want to remind everybody is, first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Krisha. That was great. And it was such a reminder of the book. I love the book. So, and every once in a while, when I'm not being my organized self or doing everything, I'm thinking about habit stacking or the 2-minute thing. Those are the two things that I remember most clearly, was habit stacking in the 2 minutes if I don't want to do something. But tomorrow night, Tuesday night, we've got Jose Trammell, I believe is her name. She's the one that made it national marketing director. Now I think she's IMD with Tower Gardens in Canada. So you're going to want to see that call tomorrow night. And if you've got any brand new partners who love their Tower Gardens, this is a call that you're going to want to get people to be on. And I believe at 5:30, there's going to be a Healthy Living Affiliates call number 1 with Dr. Jan Roberta. So we have a call at 5:30 if you want to get on it, and 6 o'clock with our team. And I think that's it for tonight. And thanks for everybody being on. And Kirsten, thank you 100 times over for doing our Monday night mindset. Next Monday, July 3rd and July 4th, no calls, but we are going to have Mindset Monday on July 10th, right? So there we go.
Yes, and it is going to
With,
feature.
oh my God, with Lisa Bartlett doing Positive Intelligent Quotient, which is an amazing course that some of us got to go through all together. And Lisa took it on in a big way. So she's going to share it with you on July 10th. I think we're
So
done.
excited for that too. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Krisha.
Thanks again for
Good night.
participating.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Good night.